Alright, Earthlings! Welcome back to the Thundering Dice channel with your boys, the Thundering Dice Brothers. And today, we're back again with episode 2 of the Rings of Power. Again, I'm watching it for the first time, and Ian's got all the background knowledge, so between the two of us, we should be able to provide a pretty decent critique of this show. And straight off the bat, I just want to get this out of the way, nothing happens in this episode. Everybody ends up exactly where they started. Galadriel, still in the water. She made a new friend, I guess. Bronwyn, she's now starting to leave, but hasn't left yet, technically. No real exploration of the tunnel was made. He just kind of scarpered at the first sign of danger, so Legolas would be ashamed of his kindred, I think. But yeah, it was a boring episode, I'll put it that way.
Yes, even with everything in Khazad-dûm is still sort of boring, because, I mean, like, nothing happens besides, well, I mean, a lot happens in that respect. Like, oh, you get there, you get turned away, you invoke some stupid dwarven ritual that doesn't exist, you break some stones, you, spoiler, purposely lose, and then you're about to get kicked out, you reconcile with Durin, you get to see the family, you have a little heart-to-heart, and then that's basically it.
And then you get some kind of a prelude to a reveal where Durin is talking with his father, and then they have servants whose only job is to lift the lid, apparently, open it up, and it's like that scene in Pulp Fiction where you don't know what's inside of it. It's just this glow. In this case, it's silver, so I'm assuming it's mithril. I have to say, though, that was the better part of the episode. I enjoyed that the most.
Yeah.
How they got there is kind of silly. I mean, just the two, like, super high-ranking elves just walking through hundreds of miles of Middle-earth, like, alone, no escort. Whatever, that's fine. And then homeboy, Celebrimbor, just gets turned away. He's like, I just go back, alone. Like, fuck it. I don't even see they have, like, a pack animal or any supplies. They're just living off the land, I guess. Just two elven princes roughing it.
It's a little rough. And then it's especially funny when I first saw that scene with, like, as Celebrimbor just gets turned away. Because this is sort of important, but Celebrimbor helps Narvi make the Doors of Durin. So it's like,
if anyone's an old friend of the dwarves, it would be Celebrimbor, ostensibly, right?
Yeah. The Smiths of Eregion and Khazad-dûm had a pretty good friendship in the Second Age. So the fact that they get off on such a wrong foot just straight off the bat, you're just like, I mean, like, you can say, like, oh, look, they're introducing the storyline. Now this is how Celebrimbor meets Narvi. This is what's going to happen. Yeah, sure, you can sort of play that if you want, except that has nothing to do with why Celebrimbor is going there in the first place. So, like as soon as I saw that scene, I was just like, oh, come on, guys. Like, you're not even fucking trying here. You didn't even read the appendices that you have the rights to that you're fucking up. You're just like, nah.
Yeah, see, that's what's confusing to me. If there would be, like, massive gaps that they're filling in with stuff, I would, okay, whatever. You're breaking new ground. You're creating this story, and of course you're going to be lacking because Tolkien is just better at it. You're not going to measure up. That's okay. I would almost forgive that, but just changing shit for
no reason
seems pointless.
Speaking of changing shit.
Yeah, so I assume that the stranger that, fell from the sky from somewhere, who knows where, obviously not Valinor, unless he came out of a rocket ship and then had a parabolic like ICBM trajectory or something and came back. But he came from heaven, apparently. He's a fallen star. Let's go with that. And I'm assuming he's Gandalf. But kind of like his teeth are all fucked up, which is gross and weird. He obviously got some magic and he's doing weird shit with it. Grunting and
complete uncontrolled too.
Yeah, just sort of seems like instinctive, like meh, anger, danger, fire. Yeah,
slightly insane.
Yeah, so whatever. I guess I don't know anything about him or his story yet, and that is what Ian is here for, because please do enlighten me now. I refuse to let him tell me this during the episode because I wanted to save this for now. What is Gandalf's actual origin to Middle-earth? How does he arrive? What is his purpose?
Well, in the books, and canonically speaking, let's not go for the TV show, because we don't know, for all intents and purposes, for my brother's purpose, he doesn't know who the stranger is. So as far as he knows...
But I exist in the world, and Pulp Fiction exists around me. Pulp Fiction, geez. Well, that too. But the world of fiction exists around me, and I do read the Lord of the Rings subreddit occasionally, so yeah.
I know it's
Gandalf.
Yeah,
I spoiled it for myself already, before I even started watching it.
And it was the most obvious thing, too. I mean, like, they dressed him in brown. I mean, like, he gets found by the Harfoots. They laid every possible, like, retarded clue.
And he's able to exist in the middle of a crater, laying literally on top of fire and not be hurt by it. I was like, well.
Yeah, very Gandalf-y. But if you want to talk about the origin story as it was written by Tolkien, you run into a few little problems. A, there is no set order for the way the Istari, or the wizards, appear in Middle-earth. So they all appear on ship coming out of, the west and land on Middle-earth. So they all appear that way.
So they did not fall from the sky.
No,
Okay.
They did not fall from a sky. Sky is nothing as stupid as an actual comet, and then you're just basically just like a newbie on Middle-earth.
Also, can we appreciate the fireball that he created? I mean, damn, he much larger than his physical self could create. There's not enough stuff to displace to create that fireball. But physics doesn't matter in this show. There's other parts that make zero sense physics-wise. It's hilariously dumb.
Yeah.
But that... Continue, sorry.
But going back to the origin, so there are multiple accounts of of which story arrived first and which ones arrived last in the Unfinished Tales. This is specifically Unfinished Tales because obviously in the Silmarillion that only deals with the First Age, and Lord of the Rings only deals with at the very end of the Third Age.
Right.
So in the Unfinished Tales, you either have Saruman be the first one to arrive, or Gandalf being the last one to arrive, and then a few little iterations.
So they don't all come together on the same boat?
No.
Okay.
The only ones that you know for sure come together, and even this isn't for sure, but you basically implied, are the Blues. The ones that you know. The ones that are completely lost to the story. Even Tolkien wasn't quite sure what he was going to do with them. There are multiple stories for the Blues. One of them is that they fall to Sauron's influence in the East and basically just become like dark servants of his. Another one is that they form magical cults against Sauron, but sort of become a little bit evil in their endeavor, even though that they are still actively trying to prevent Sauron, so they are fulfilling their purpose. So you don't get an actual clear which one comes first, which one comes last. The one that I believe happened is that Saruman comes first. No, wait. The Blues come first. Saruman comes either after Radagast or before Radagast, and Gandalf arrives at the very end.
And to what purpose?
To what they are emissaries, the Istari are emissaries of the Valar to counter the rise of Sauron, which Manwë, in a poem that's not canon either, it's just in the margins, said he saw Sauron as like a slow-moving shadow. And because of the mistakes of the First Age, the War of Power and the War of Wrath, where the Valar themselves actually went to war with Morgoth for the sake of the elves and to chain Morgoth, and because they summoned the elves to Valinor and all the problems that happened afterwards with the Cimmerals and everything that you saw in episode 1, Manwë decided that it would be better to send emissaries who are Maiar, so they are of the same order of Sauron, one order below the Valar, but they are clothed in human flesh, have more or less forgotten a lot of their actual history. Their power is greatly diminished, but is still quite powerful depending on which one you're talking about. And they are sent...
Especially like you're talking about Gandalf and Saruman.
And Saruman, yeah. Those two are the
and that's something that the movies don't do very well showing, I don't think. Because Peter Jackson had a weird aversion to showing overt magic and stuff like that, which is weird for such a fantasy, magical, lore-driven story, but...
Yeah. I can also sort of chalk that up to it was, such a revolutionary thing that he didn't want to go too much into the magic because he thought it might cheapen it for modern audiences. So I could play devil's advocate both ways. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, you don't get an actual idea of how powerful the two are. In this respect, the Istari or the wizards are meant to counter Sauron's rise, to kindle resistance in the hearts of men and give counsel. Obviously, only one of them is actually successful in this,
which is Gandalf, because Radagast fucks around a lot in the forest, and he finds a home with animals.
Yeah, he becomes enamored with the birds and the beasts. Now, you can also be devil's advocate here, saying that all the Istari fulfilled their purpose in the exact same way that it was supposed to happen, because everything that happens is by Iluvatar's design, and even evil will ultimately undo itself and further his own plot, which the evil cannot himself imagine. So you can say that Radagast was never meant to go back. The two Blues were never meant to go back. Saruman was meant to fail. That one is kind of free will versus Iluvatar's planning, so that there's a little thing. But only in this respect, only Gandalf is successful, and only he is allowed to return to Valinor and retake up his angelic form, Orlin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, well, we see, compared to what I know from episode 2, this Gandalf figure, the stranger, he appears and doesn't remember things. So so he's on Middle-earth in the right time frame in the Second Age.
More or less, yes.
When Saruman starts to ascend. for the first time, I guess.
Well, now you run into another issue here too, actually, because it isn't specifically stated when Círdan the Shipwright gives Gandalf Narya, because in
Narya being
the ring of fire,
okay,
who
were
the Elvish
forged
rings.
by
Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor. Okay, very
Alone, and this is very specific. Celebrimbor alone forges the 3 elven rings. The other, the 9 and the 7, Sauron has a direct hand in creating, even though the 3 are linked to him because Sauron gives Celebrimbor and the Smiths of Eregion ringcraft, and without ringcraft, none of the rings of power could be made. So that's why all the rings are linked to Sauron.
Because it's his tech, kind of. He's got like a backdoor into all of it.
Yeah,
if you want to think of it in a modern sense.
Yeah, in that respect, yeah. He's hacked it. He's got the backdoor. He can influence them either indirectly or directly, depending on what it is. But
so what kind of an influence, theoretically, could he have had on Gandalf through that ring if he had had the One Ring? Because without the One Ring, ostensibly, he doesn't really have that kind of influence, right?
No,
So with it, what kind of influence would he directly have had over the other rings? Could he have turned them into wraiths? That kind of influence?
No. Because like the wraiths are specifically for the race of men, and this is more like a side effect of men having rings of power than anything else. Because when men first got the rings, they did not instantly become wraiths. They actually became closer to elves in stature and bearing than anything else. People were like drawn towards them. They were able to use the rings to like heighten their own power and become lordly. That's why when Denethor in Lord of the Rings says, haven't you ever like wished to look gracious and lordly like the kings of old?
Right, okay.
He's specifically referring to the power that the rings granted the original bearers. But after a spell of time, they didn't age and they started to become thin, and they became super weary of the world until they finally fell under complete dominion of the One and became literal shadows of themselves, not visible in the real world, only visible to Sauron.
And the Frodo being able to see them when he puts the ring on
is because he's now linked to Sauron's power and the unseen world, so he's actually able to see them in their diminished form. So like that's like specifically for like the rings of men and obviously making them immortal. The rings of power for the dwarves were never. Oh, actually, wait. Let me think. Let me step back because I just. Technically, all the rings of power were made for elves. Like it was never the intention of Sauron in this respect to give them to men and dwarves at the very beginning, because elves were the chief problem he had. He thought he could subjugate men and dwarves a lot easier, but he knew he couldn't do it with the elves because Morgoth failed to do it. So he needed to deceive them to trick them into the thing. So all the 16 rings of power were originally made for elves. Well, because of certain events, he was forced to change his plan and then give out the 9 to men, the 7 to dwarves. But like so, the rings of power in the dwarves only affected their gold lust and their greed because of the way dwarves are made. So in the depths of time, Aule forged dwarves before elves or men awaken in Middle Earth. So because of this, Aule made dwarves incredibly strong and incredibly stubborn to resist Morgoth, because he knew that Morgoth would be a problem.
Okay.
So when Sauron comes along and gives them the rings of power, he finds them 100% indomitable. You cannot force the will of a dwarf outside of what that dwarf wants to do.
So all he could do is encourage some natural traits they already had.
Yeah, encourage the gold lust and just make them basically just kind of like rage out. Yeah. So much so that inevitably the dragons come and devour at least 3 of the rings, the dwarven rings of power, and many of the dwarven treasure hoards. So that's why the rings of power obviously affect the dwarves. The elves, now it's a completely different type of power, because it was Celebrimbor never meant Sauron had never had a direct hand, minus the lorecraft that he gave Celebrimbor over a few centuries. And whilst the other ones are, not to say lesser essays, to quote Tolkien, but they are lesser rings in comparison to the final 3. And the final 3 are made to halt the fading, to keep Middle Earth unchanging and beautiful, and to and to like help heal. And then also like with the Ring of Power, I mean, with Narya, the red ring, that like helps kindle resistance and like the internal fire of the people like who are surround the ring bearer. So like they all become enriched.
So when he goes to Gondor, he incites some extra, constitution points or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. When if you want to put some D&D and everything.
When he goes to the Shire and he gets, Sam and Frodo, and then by extension Merry and Pippin and Fatty Bulger.
Well, actually, that part no, because he's not in direct conflict with the Shire. He leaves them. That's all the hobbits themselves.
Oh, so he isn't actually having any hand in stoking the. Oh, okay. Well, that's
and
cool.
at that point too, the One Ring's already gone, so the power of the three fails. So they are reduced to just mere rings, not rings of power really anymore.
And then when the ring reappears.
Wait, which part are we talking? Are we talking about the very end?
Yeah, I was thinking about the very end.
Yeah, I'm talking about like the very end, like after like when Frodo and Sam and have to free the Shire. That's what I was specifically
I was thinking, getting, for example, Bilbo up and out and going on his adventure to start this stuff, getting Frodo and Sam to commit so quickly about, well, not quickly, 35 years or whatever,
33.
But not a lot of contact in those 33 years. But getting them to buy in and go, and inspiring the courage in the Fellowship where it may not have been there without his, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, very loosely, definitely helping encourage the Fellowship. In regards to Bilbo, I would just say that this more just has, the story had to happen. It has nothing to do with the Red Ring, because Gandalf's like, all right, out the door, we're going. Okay. Get up, come on. Let's go, let's go. And
it's not like
fine.
Bilbo was a real willing participant at first. He did kind of have to get pushed out of his door.
Yeah, he waffles a lot. All
right, so that gives me and by extension hopefully the viewers a bit more of a backstory, because it is called Rings of Power after all, so I feel like it's important to know what we're fucking talking about, which is possibly an issue with the story that I just thought about, that it's called Rings of Power, but so far we've heard very little about them or why they matter.
Yeah, because they start the show in the wrong time and in the wrong place to give you a reason about why you would care about the Rings of Power, and then later shit that happens in season 1 really fucks up the way everything happened. I'm not going to go into it. Yeah. I
refuse to be spoiled.
No.
This is my experiment to see if I like it without knowing what's going on or the backstory or not, and if that comes into conflict with you, who knows all the backstory and therefore
loathes this.
Yes, because there's, like I said, I thought it was a pretty boring episode. So to get back to the topic at hand, we've got orcs are obviously alive. We saw an orc sighting, fantastic. We've got Stranger, aka Gandalf, who is wild and dumb.
Yep.
Literally, can't speak, make grunting noises, and can scratch runes, and he can influence fireflies to do things and kills them all, or they just die for a different reason, but not the ones that are in the lantern, those don't die. And then, so the orc is there, and the orc looks all fucking, terrifying. It's a scary-ass orc. They're crawling through caves whose origin are these tunnels, and I don't understand how. I mean, it must be that's the least efficient way to travel. I mean, it'd be more efficient to just travel at night and hide during the day, like in caves, like trolls do.
Yeah.
How far are they tunneling? Where are they tunneling from? We know there are some decent distance away from the two towns that are now connected. They're tunneling that way, and that seems really stupid. But whatever, fine. The kid somehow is heavy enough to be a counterweight to pull him up into the rafters. Also not possible. Physics don't work that way. Speaking of physics that don't work that way at all, the fucking shit in the ocean, no. Okay, the first pass by the worm, which, what, are you stealing it from Dune? Why are you calling it a worm? And second of all, you're in the ocean. Call it an eel or a fucking, I don't know, make up a fucking Tolkien-esque sounding word, not Theo though, because Theo sounds like you're Greek.
Yeah.
Not from the British Isles. Anyway, that little fucking ship that they have conveniently can be taken apart, and it has a little bullshit mast and sail on it too that wouldn't work at all, and the fucking thing would flip over and it would just sink instantly, because clearly Archimedes would look at that and laugh. I mean, yes, each individual piece may have buoyancy, but as a whole, when it's getting swamped by fucking waves that are 14 feet tall, no, I'm sorry. You're all dead. That really pissed me off, and it was super dumb. And also, why the fuck were they even on the ocean? They're escaping the Southlands into the ocean. They couldn't have gone, west, a different direction, north. I don't fucking know where the Southlands are in relation to the ocean. I don't have the map in front of me. They could have gone at least 2 directions, I'm sure, that were away from the ocean and away from the Southlands. They're getting attacked by people out there, whom I don't know who or what. The weird raft served no purpose at all. We just saw some characters, they bitched and fought a little bit, and then all got killed. Awesome. We've got the handsome dude, of course, he survives, and he's on his own mission, and we're not going to know about that, because he has to be a little mysterious here. Galadriel has to butt heads with him a little bit, because story drama. And again, they'd all be dead and drowned. And how long was Galadriel swimming? I mean, how long did it take them to go from Erebor to not Erebor, Eregion to Moria? You know, like a day, probably a lot longer than that. And even if it was just a day, how many people can just swim for a day in the middle of the ocean? She'd be so parched and sun-drenched. I mean, if it was any longer than 3 days, a human would be dead. I don't know how long an elf can survive without water and food and getting sunburnt or whatever. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's always foggy because it's like it's moody for the. I'm sorry, that's a whole lot of bitching about not a very important point. But stuff like that does take me out of the story a little bit, and the fact that I can ramble about it that like lengthily is a problem, you know. Yes. And then speaking of problems that are really annoying, like there's a small scene that kind of bugged me. The Harfoots almost like instantly, instead of asking how homeboy really is, you know, after he breaks his leg, like, oh shit, like, you know, get the wise one, get the healer, you know, she'll set the bone and whatever, and we'll drag him on a cart with the rest of the shit that we have. No, they're like, will he be okay for the migration? As if it's an option just to let him die behind. Like their entire survival depends on him being able to walk and pull a cart. No extra hands whatsoever. No one can help out. That is not how societies work. I mean, I mentioned this when we watched it, but anthropologists often use healed bones in graves as a sign of a developed society. That means that the people have taken time out of their lives to care for an injured, wounded, sick person who, in the moment as they are recovering, provides no benefit to the society outside of whatever knowledge they may have that they can communicate. Outside of that, they're just a burden and a waste of resources, and yet we take care of them because we live in a society and that's what we do. That instant, like, it just rubbed me the wrong way that their first thought was, oh, is he going to be able to migrate? He won't be able to, and then, oh, he won't be able to pull a cart, will he? Like, fucking asshole. God, no, it pissed me off. That's not how the Shirelings are, and I know they're like proto-hobbits, they got some developing to do, and they got language and tools, and they know how to make carts, and they got stupid, pithy sayings that are way too clunky as well. You notice that? They, like, try to shoehorn in these, like, earthy kind of sayings that are they're like 2 or 3 words too long. Yeah. You know, a saying like that, a colloquialism, is often abbreviated and it's short by nature. The only way they survive is because they're being short and they roll off the tongue. Saying, it ain't no use being a square cartwheel and it's supposed to be round there, Sven. Like, what? No, it sounds dumb. Sorry. That's another just small rant that's really not a big deal in the grand scape of the show or the story, but it's so easy to rant about because it just takes me out of it, man. Like, the Harfoots have done nothing so far as well. They're all just there. Nori and her friend, I forget her friend's name, they're kind of fun. Nori and Poppy, cool. When you said, like, Merry and Pippin, I was like, okay, I slightly changed my opinion of them. They get to have, like, they get a slight more pass from in my mind. They seem a little more normal.
And that analogy might be stretching it, though, when I say that they're sort of the Merry and Pippin. Like, they're the Merry and Pippin for children's versions. Okay. And who are also really stupid and do some really stupid things. They are
really stupid. Yeah, they do really dumb things. Not just, like, out of curiosity's sake. You know, curiosity is laudable. Without curiosity, we wouldn't be talking to you through a microphone through the internet. So, curiosity is great. Being stupid and, just like doing dumb shit.
Eating snails straight off the ground.
Yeah, that scene, that weird, like, almost ASMR thing about it. Like, okay, what the fuck? No one just eats raw snails as far as I know, except for, like, birds and shit. And, most things are better when they're cooked, including snails. You know, the French don't eat snails raw, as far as I know. That's fucking weird. No, just they're like fucking cooked and drenched in butter because butter makes everything good, and snails by themselves probably taste like dirt.
Yeah.
So yeah, that nasty just slurping up raw snails was gross, and they really didn't have to show that, like, in graphic detail. Like, man, the hobbits like good foods, meads, ales, aged cheeses, fine breads, and comfort. Nothing about eating a snail like that strikes me as any of those things, first of all. And then the stranger Gandalf dude just having that lingering shot of him crunching on them and that super over-the-top crunching noise. No, man, I don't want to see that. That's gross.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my overwhelming complaints about it. Just small little annoying things that take me out of the story, and as a story, nothing happens. And it's an hour long. Like, in an hour of a movie, something has to happen. Otherwise, you get fucking bored. You know, if 1/3 of the Fellowship of the Rings was that movie, you'd be like, what the fuck is going on? How is anything going to get resolved here? Like, you have a lot of time in a show like that to tell a story, and I get that, but you should still tell a story.
Yeah.
So far, between episodes 1 and 2, not much has happened. The war's over. No, it's not. Haha, we knew that. Galadriel goes on a ship and then jumps ship and is stuck there still. Had some adventures in there that were pointless. The Harfoots are still in exactly the same place they were at, except that 2 of them found Gandalf, and 1 of them broke a leg. And so clearly, the world is over for that fucker. Leave him and his cart behind. We're going. This is a fucking dog-eat-dog, post-apocalyptic, zombie fucking apocalypse. God damn, like, this is nasty. These are some hardcore, ruthless Shirelings right here. What would the people of Hobbiton think of them? They'd be so ashamed of their ancestors. Disgraceful, yes. But anyway, that's all the bitching that I'm going to do. And for the remaining time, I will yield the floor to Ian's bitching if he has any left. Final bitching thoughts, or maybe even things that you were like, that's actually good. You know what's really good about it? The wide angle shots of landscapes are beautiful, and the music is on point.
Yeah, the music is good. I like the way Khazad-dûm is animated.
Yeah, Khazad-dûm was really cool.
It looks really it looks like it's an actual place.
That was the best part of the episode.
You know, I mean, like, you have mirrors throwing the light, so you get that type of thing. Even though the lamps of Khazad-dûm are said to mirror starlight and moonlight and sunlight, so you don't actually need to do it that way because they are physical lamps, not mirrors just casting the sun's rays around. But like I can let that one.
That would have been really cool to do.
Yeah, that would have been really cool to do. Yeah, like that. So that looks good. Yeah, that's actually probably the only thing that I can think of, like, that I'm okay with. The rest, I mean, and also I do like Elrond coming 20 years of 20 years later to Moria, and Durin being pissed off. Like, yeah, you missed my wedding. You missed 2 of my kids' birth.
Yeah, 20 years in millennia is nothing, but 20 years in 300 years is a lot of time.
Yeah, and like, I'm pretty sure, like, Durin at this point is like 50 years old or something like that.
So that's almost half his life.
That Elrond just decides to leave. And yeah, you can be like, yeah, he's an immortal. He doesn't have a sense of time. That's great. But to a dwarf, you're going to remember this. Mm-hmm. Even as a man, you'd remember this too. So I like that. I like how the way the reconciliation works. And I do have to say, I kind of do like Gisela. She's a fun character. Gisela, not Gisela. Gisela.
His wife?
Yeah, his wife.
Okay.
Yeah. She's fun. I mean, she should have a beard. All dwarvish women should have beards, if I want to be really pedantic. But I'm okay that she doesn't.
That's not a big deal. Creature design like that. Like, she's obviously clearly a dwarf, and she fits into the dwarven archetype that we've come to understand already in the show and from other iterations of dwarves in Peter Jackson's version. They're clearly dwarves. We recognize them as such.
Yeah.
She fits in.
Yeah, she fits in. She's got a good character.
She's pretty fun for the limited little moment that I saw there.
Yeah, she's always spunky. She might be a little too driving, and at times, and Durin might be a little too wimpy at times, and he could stand up to be a little more of a, all right, yeah, I'm going to do some shit. But for the most part, though, I have no problems with her. Some people in the fandom did when she first came out, and I was like, it's not that big of a deal considering the host of other issues.
Everything else seems like nothing's happening. So you can't even really comment on story, because there is no story so far. I mean, everyone's in the same places. It's not a sitcom. You know, the great secret of sitcom television is that no matter what challenges arise during the episode, everyone ends up in the same places as they started out, happy and healthy and moving on. This is true for Friends. This is true for House, honestly, even.
Yeah.
For a lot of the time. This is true for Futurama, mostly. But, you know, it's a TV trope. It should not, for a sitcom. This is not a sitcom. It's a story that has a story arc and should have steps in it. It should be the rising tension stage where we have things happening.
There are no stakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, technically, like, they're back. They keep telling us Sauron's back and the orcs are back, and now we saw a town get burned. So there are some stakes, and the people got taken somewhere or got eaten or some who knows what.
Yes.
So there are some stakes, but
very few in comparison to, you don't feel the stakes. They're there, but you're just like, I mean, like, even when Galadriel is chilling out in the fucking water, you're just like, all right, cool. And that, like, whatever serpent creature, the worm, is coming to attack. Even that felt like the most zero stakes ever. You're like, okay, this is happening. I don't know why I should care.
I shouldn't laugh laugh out loud at certain parts of the show, and they just take me out of the immersion. They're just funny. Like, during the battle with the orc, at the very end, she picks up some giant cleaver or whatever, wood axe, I can't remember what it was, and she swings it up, and then thump, and it's a quick cut to her, like, dramatically thumping the orc's head on the table in front of these dirty-ass council elders, whatever they are, the mayor or something, the town butcher, whoever he is. It's so fucking dramatic, and I just laughed. I mean, come on, that whole fight sequence was just dumb.
Yeah.
And, like, all right, orc was coming up out of the ground. All right, so first off, Homeboy pissed off at the rats, so he busts a little hole in there. And then, of course, okay, that opens up the biggest cliche ever. There's going to be an eyeball. Sure enough, boom. Jump scare, complete with dumb music right there. Sound effect. Sorry, that's not even music. That's just like, boom.
Yeah.
Fucking stupid. And then there's the eyeball. Okay, predictable. He runs away. Okay, so then the orc ostensibly claws the rest of the way out of the hole, and the boy hides in the cupboard. And then the orc goes and hides again, waits for her to walk in and walk around, and then for the kid to motion to her to hide. And then once she's hidden, he then reemerges to fuck with them. Like, what on earth is going on in that orc's head? Why is he there? What is he doing? Is he having, like, playtime?
Yeah,
it's very weird, very dumb. And then, of course, it only serves for her to kill him and to provide proof in dramatic way. And what a dumb dramatic way to do it too. I don't know how far it is from her hut to the middle of the village or whatever, but as soon as you start walking through town with a head, you're gonna feel really weird. Like, what you should do is be like, guys, fucking come check this shit out. Like, dead orc, hole in the ground, tunnels, confirms everything I told you. Not just boom, dramatic head on a silver platter like it's fucking Londo Malari shit in Centauri Prime. Like, god damn, guys. That kind of stuff takes me out of the fantasy immersion stuff. If I laugh out loud at it, and it's not, a Quentin Tarantino movie where it's an over-the-top scene where it's meant to be fucking funny and yeah. Sorry, that's literally all I'm gonna say now because we're way over budget.
Yes. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that tirade and the little bit of the lore discussion that I decided to interject for 20 minutes.
I really appreciate that, as do a lot of people, I'm sure, because this is kind of lore that takes a lot of studying to be able to parse together and tell somebody.
Yeah.
So your hours have not been wasted.
No, definitely not. I enjoy and also it's cool too because I've told you lots of shit that happens in Lord of the Rings, but every time I start going into one of these lore deep dives, you get this like glaze.
It's really hard to keep paying attention.
What the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah. So now that I have something to ask specific questions about, and then you can provide answers from the lore, that works better for me.
Yeah, and it's really fun for me.
Yeah, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Like, comment, and subscribe down below. Let us know what you think about Rings of Power, about our commentary. Tell Ian you appreciate his in-depth knowledge and that you learned something. Or tell him that he's wrong and spark a fierce debate, which I will gleefully participate in tacitly as an outsider.
Yes, please tell me I'm wrong, because if you can prove me wrong on lore, I'm going to be deeply grateful.
Stephen Colbert, this is your time to shine.
Yeah, bitch. Come get me on. We'll have a talk.
All right, thanks very much, guys. We'll see you next time.